So just coming in and getting everything cleared up. A lot of times I leave projects on the desk to dry. I'm sure many of you are like that. So welcome to the studio and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to keep on working on our mask making and we're going to continue to talk about self-care. One of the things that we know with mask making is we do a lot of collaging, right? And so collage is like really a basic element of probably one of maybe 3 or 4 genres that we all use. If you think about book making, journaling, collage, gel printing, these type of things. So I was asking myself, why does collaging generate such really good well-being, like in your heart? When we sit at our desk and we're in our studios, we're working and we're collaging, we're doing our mask making, we're hibernating, we're cocooning and all that good stuff. And it's, we just feel, I just feel so much alive. I'm just happy. It just makes the world melt away. And I just feel so invigorated and just at a happy place. And I think this is true for a lot of us. So there must be some universal thing going on here with collage, and why it just generates, these feelings of well-being. And so, like, it really is one of those ideal self-care things that we do in our studio, So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But let me get us down to the table so we can work on our smalls now. So now we've gone from our large pieces to our medium size, and now we're down to our scraps. And one thing that I love to do with these scraps is make the strips. You've probably seen this done before. I find it's just a handy way to keep them small, because there's something to be said about having small pieces to collage with, but then having them all over the place is what gets a little bit, unruly. So if we can keep them small, but keep them connected so that we can pull and take what we want from them, I think that's ideal. And that's why I love strips. So we'll be doing those. We're going to be talking about collage and its healing, factors in our bodies, our temples, and why it has such benefits as artists for telling our stories in our mythology. So let's get down to the table.
I'm going to begin pulling out all of my smalls, and this is a consolidated envelope from the last 2 sessions. I have 2 here. So one is consolidated that I'm digging in right now that has some of the pieces that I still want to use as they are when I first sorted through them. And then there were still others that I needed to work into the smaller mass, making projects. And then the envelope underneath is bits, the really smalls left over that I'll be using as well. So I always kind of start the session by going through and just kind of figuring out what I have and what I want to use and how I can just get rid of things. And while we're going through this process of making our smalls into a strip that can be stored and easily, accessed when we want to use it for various things, I want to talk a bit about why collage is so undervalued as a healing modality. That's what we're going to call it, a healing modality, because it very much is used in art therapy, in psychology and psychiatry as a tool to help access a lot of inner going-ons that we don't always easily know, what it is or how to articulate it when asked. And over the years, I found that, first of all, collage brings me so much pleasure. And I'm sure all of us who are listening to this, we're in the same boat. That's why we do this. This is why we work in our art journals and, make books and make, collaged art pieces, because we enjoy this process. It's a simple process. It's easy. It does have its technicalities and the things that you learn in order to create amazing collages, but in general, it's just an easy art genre to jump in and just start doing. And I think that's a part of its appeal. There's no skills required. Materials are easy to get or readily available. A lot of times it's easy when you want to just begin to do some collage. You just kind of look around your studio and find things that you already have. It doesn't really require going out to an art supply store and buying a whole lot of stuff. Aside from a glue stick, or any type of glue, and the materials you already have, you can pretty much just jump right into collage. It also is a quick process. So you get to something that that you can like, that sort of speaks to your emotions fairly quickly. And I think that's why it has gained so much appeal a lot, across a lot of the genres, the junk journaling, the various book structures, my Jelly Junkadori, a lot of the YouTube channels. When you look at them in the arts and crafts area, largely it's collaging when you really think about it. And I think that's amazing, because it's one of those things that we can sit down and just get in our little happy space. And now that we've all confirmed that we're hibernating and cocooning and that we're giving ourselves permission to do that in the next couple of months, collage is perfect for that, because it really does allow you to explore the things that you're feeling, your ideas, maybe your goals, the things that you'd like to see happen in this year. It really provides that, as well as it allows you to reflect on all the things that you did in the previous year, because as you pick up all these scraps, all these pieces, it reminds you of other projects, reminds you of things that you were feeling a month ago, 3 months ago, 8 months ago. And I really like that about collaging, especially doing this mask making, because it allows me to go back and remember things that I may have forgotten. And I think that has so much value. But at the core of it, what art therapists talk about when they think of collage as a modality that helps people, just come to a happy space, is that it does actually release uncomfortable emotions, but it does it in this very subtle, non-confrontational way. And I think those of you who have followed me in my Radical Love project and the Red Thread project, there's a number of projects that I've done previously where this idea, even my symbols, even the workshops that I do on intuitive scripting, on hearth codes, on the secrets of coded script, to name 3 of them, we found that the symbols really do tie into emotions. And we begin to see the things that come up for us on those journeys. But it's amazing how they come up in ways that are gentle, that are loving, that have that element of self-care in them. And it's like a mirror. We get to look at the work that we've done in this unconscious, process of just gluing pieces of paper in our journal or on a substrate of some sort. And then something else will come up. It'll remind us of, a past event in our childhood, or a relative or a family member that we may be processing things with. It's just really amazing. And I have found every time that I've introduced these concepts in my community, like some really amazing things come up. Like our Radical Love was so transformative. I went through it myself again. And I know I was in a period of time where I needed to really reevaluate some of the emotions and the uncomfortable things that I was dealing with. And so much came up for me. And in some of those, those Zoom sessions, we laughed, we cried, but there was no drama. There was no, feeling of uncomfort that, we felt we had to act out or something like that. It was just really amazing. And I just forever love this process of collage. We did collaging, we did gel printing in that session. And I think that's what we love about gel printing too. It's something non-confrontational about gel printing as well, that makes it easy just to, enjoy ourselves and not get too caught up in the technique process of it. The other thing that happens with collaging, this will be the third point that I want to bring up. The first was, skills required. It's materials are readily available. The second would be that it does help to bring up emotions and sometimes uncomfortable ones. And the third one is there's a lot of inner symbolisms that we'll experience. And so it's this idea of symbolic release that happens with collage. And that is why you find that a lot of my work really focuses around symbols. Even my stencils, my art foamies, many of those patterns are very organic, universal symbolisms. I'm really big on symbols. And I feel like if we can find symbols that speak to us, we begin finding those bits of ourselves that have been lost along the way, or that connect to our ancestors or to our cultural heritage in really amazing, powerful ways. And so that's why a lot of those products that I produce, I want them to be things that are not so much, Robin's artwork and my drawings and my, images, but I draw from these universal images and I recreate them into images and symbols that I think are readily relatable. And that's because I've spent a lot of time with this idea of the dynamics of this symbolic release in my own work. Hence, me even calling it art mythos, the idea of telling our stories visually. So yeah, I wanted us to kind of open this dialogue around collage, because I would be really interested in hearing your stories and the things that you've discovered with collage. And maybe us having this discussion right now, these things were all happening, but maybe you didn't really think about it like that. And with us talking right now, you may think, wow, that is so true. I never really kind of thought about it like that, but I do find this or that is happening with me or for me when I collage. Or when I reflect back on the collages that I've done, that I really enjoy, or the time spent on them, they have felt like a healing process. And sometimes we don't even know what we were able to transmute. But at the end of this, time in our studio and collaging and what have you, it just felt good. We know something cathartic happened, even if we don't always know what it is. And sometimes it's not important to necessarily know what it is, but just that feeling, that sense of well-being, that sense that we just spent some self-care time in our studios is just amazing. You can also meet and accept these inner parts of ourselves, right? So, we may be working on even an abstract. It doesn't have to be direct symbolism. And as we're working through it, maybe we begin to think about a time that, we spent with a sibling, in our youth or something like that. And maybe there is some unresolved things there, or maybe that was some really good times that we had, and we carry that moment with us throughout our lives. Like when we want to think about some fun stuff, I know I do that a lot. When I want to just think about fun times, I think about me and my siblings, my brother, my sister, when we were younger, and I think about some fun things that we did, or maybe some sneaky things that we did that our parents never found out about, kind of thing. And it just makes you laugh, and it brings us enjoyment, right? So I think that we can confront this idea of inner beauty, inner healing. It doesn't always have to be these really negative confrontational things that come up. Though when they come up, it's okay to be able to look at them, because we're in the privacy of our own studios, right? We're not on display. We don't have to have this conversation with anyone else. And so we can look at it in a way that'll allow us to process them. But a lot of times It's the fun things. It's the great things that have happened, in our lives that can also be very healing. Maybe in moments when we are maybe feeling a little more down or feeling like we have a little bit more despair. And I apologize because as I'm taping this, I had a major, airplane just fly over. But that happens. That's life. So that, if you heard that rumbling, I'm not too far from Air Force Base and they do their morning training. So my apologies. But yeah, it really does allow us to, meet that part and begin to accept that part of our inner being, our inner journey. One of the things that art therapists talk about is that art symbolism in art is more powerful than verbal expression. That old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Yeah, it's so true about the images, the colors, the textures, the symbolism that comes up in our artwork. It's really more powerful than verbal expression, because sometimes, you ever been in a situation, sometimes I know for myself, a lot of times when I'm confronted with a very important conversation or a very deep emotional conversation with a family member, and it causes me to have to maybe really sit and look at myself and really see the role that I may be playing in something. I can be present, but a lot of times I can't speak on it. Like I can't, in that moment have a response that maybe satisfies the conversation. Are any of you like that? That feeling that I can't put my emotions into words and I'm kind of stumbling all over them. And when I do try to express them, it just seems trivial. It doesn't seem like it really is addressing the deeper way I'm feeling about something. I think about that as a good example of why verbal expression always doesn't get to the core of how we're feeling or what we want to communicate. And so it's really true in our artwork. And collage, the beauty of it is that it really does allow us to get to images and colors, textures, symbols that will speak on a deeper level. If you all think about it, many of you came to me because through my intuitive scripting. It was just something that you saw in my work. You really loved it. It caught your attention. And then many of you would ask me about it. I ended up a few years ago doing my first course in it. I've since done 2.0. We've all done, many of us have done the coded scripts in my Facebook mini. And I think it's because there's a lot of hidden emotions in that script that people see and identify with. I believe that there's a lot of healing. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of sort of the vibrations and currents of Mother Earth, of nature in that script. That in itself is just healing. It just opens up pathways and opens up doorways. And I don't even understand it myself. So I don't pretend to know exactly what it does. But I know that with all the feedback that I've gotten over the years, that it is doing something. And I believe collage is a lot like my intuitive scripting. And I know that my intuitive scripting came up for me at a time when I was on a journey to really try to figure out what my voice was as an artist, what was important to me as an artist, and the scripting developed, and it has been like my muse. It has been with me for more than 30 years. And it continues to develop. It continues to morph. It continues to inform me on a spiritual and on an emotional level as it continues to inform my art. And so I know that it's a part of this very esoteric, sort of beautiful, healing energy that must be just universal. And so it doesn't have to be hard. And I think a lot of times our healing journeys, the things that we want to see different in our lives, the things that we might want to be resurrected from, or those things that we fear will annihilate us and we just want to move beyond. It doesn't have to be difficult, complex, expensive processes. I think some of the most inexpensive therapy that we can have is just sitting down to our desks, our tables, and our art room and just start gluing pieces of paper together. It is amazing. And I sit here as I share this with you all, and as we work on this strip, which you see is getting longer and longer. And you see how I'll use my stapler a lot, especially when I have longer strips or I'm putting thicker papers to thinner papers. Just stapling them is easy, and then you can glue on top of them if you want to cover the staples up. I love the Tim Holtz tiny stapler. I'll make sure I link it below. But that is like a gem, because the staples are just so beautiful. They just blend into your artwork, so you don't really feel like you want to cover them up, but you can cover them up. Like I just covered them up there because I just wanted to transition between those pieces of paper, but you don't have to, and a lot of times I don't. But these these strips are to me amazing, because you can see how we can take any piece of them and just tear them down, maybe take an 1 or 2 inch section, tear it, and then use it in our journals, use it in another collage that we're working on. And we still have small pieces. It's not like we've made something that is back to a big piece again. Because a lot of my smalls, I do want to still keep small. I just want them all in a form that is easy to handle. And I remember years ago, I don't know who it was, like I was looking at someone's channel and they started making these strips, and I just thought, brilliant, this is a great idea, just to do these strips like this. And I've been doing them ever since. So when we think about the values of collage, I think, it definitely helps us to see our inner life in a fresh way. Because we have this internal and this external self, right? And we know the part of that external self that we share. And we know the part of the internal self that we keep to ourselves. I know a lot of times I'm in conversations, and depending on what's being shared or how it's being shared or the dynamics of the conversation, there are parts of me that I'm not going to share in that conversation. And maybe it's not a safe space. Maybe I realize that I'm talking with someone who we don't share similar values, and that maybe some of the values that I share, or maybe that they're sharing with me, are maybe a little bit, what do I want to say? Just are not ones that, it's almost like, how when you can share things, we're kind of like living this sort of cancellation culture right now. And you can say something and the person will immediately jump in, blah, 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 blah. Like you don't even get a chance to sort of say what you were thinking or feeling. And if you know that you're in one of those kind of conversations, I'll put my hand up. I just hold back, because I'm just not interested in the confrontation, and I'm not interested in being in conversations where there can't be open dialogue, where I was always taught to hold two opposing thoughts in my mind, in my spirit at the same time, and not necessarily have to react to them, but just view them, just see what's going on. You don't have to have a response, and you don't have to convince someone else to think the way that you're thinking. It's okay to be in a relationship where we don't agree on everything, and the things that we don't agree on, we hold grace. We hold this space that others can have to express themselves. And I just think that that's beautiful, and that's what the Constitution here in America allows for, and in many countries it allows for that. And I think it's nice to exercise those liberties, and go back to the space of giving everybody grace, but to the point of the inner life, which is what I'm really talking about. we have that inner dialogue that sometimes we just keep to ourselves for our lifetimes. Maybe there's things that you'll never share with people, and that's okay. But wow, how powerful is it to come out in your art in a way that you're talking and you're expressing it, and maybe no one will ever get it. And that's okay. You know that you've put it there. And that externalization of this inner self is empowering. And I love that. I put a lot of coded things in my work that only I know. And that's why in that class that I taught, it's the Facebook Mini. And I'll make sure we put the link below, where I talked about the secrets of coded script, where I was teaching you how to create your own coded script. So that, and symbols as well, because, script, it's not necessarily letters, but there's symbolisms. So that when you put that in your work, you always know what you're, referring to. But others may never know unless you share the code. And I love that. It's something I think very personal and empowering about that. So the other thing that's beautiful about collaging too, it really allows us to pull from our personal environments. We get to pull from things that we've inherited over the years, old letters, handkerchiefs. I've used those in my artwork before. Maybe linen tablecloths or napkins that, linen napkins that, maybe they're stained. Maybe they have little holes in them. You would never use them at a dinner party, but maybe they were your grandmother's and they just meant so much to you, or your mother's, and you remember the dinners that she created and which she used those items. And how beautiful is it to take those and stain them, gel print on them, do eco staining and what have you, and then rip them into pieces and use them in your artwork in the form of collage. So I like the idea that we can really pull from our personal environments and use things that no one else will ever have. They will never have these items in their artwork. And I just think that's beautiful. And it is a way to continue our art mythology in telling our own personal stories in these very empowering ways. What I was doing there is, you saw me kind of peel off the backing, the double stick tape, because oftentimes what I'll do is I'll make these little washi strips out of fabric. And in that case, that was some sari silk, some antique sari silk. And it was just a little piece I still had. And of course, I was not going to throw that in the trash. So they're perfect for these strips, to take these little fabric pieces and use them. And if you've never done that before, try it. Take some favorite fabrics, you can just tear a strip and then put some double-sided tape on them and just have those rolled up. And when you're working in your journal or in your collaging and what have you, you can cut these off and they're just ready to go. I love that. So I wanted to make sure, you knew that's what I was doing there. But moving forward, just think about what's coming up for you when you're collaging. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll have a scrap sheet of paper next to me, or a lot of times my desk always has a piece of paper on it, and I'll just jot. Words may come up for me. Images may come up for me when I'm collaging, and I make sure I jot them down. And then a lot of times I'll journal about them later, or I will remember them in my artwork and then come back and pull those symbols, because the subconscious mind is always talking to us. So make sure you just kind of go in there, and when things pop up, don't look at it as random. Just write it down. It could be like a word that seems so unassociated to the work you're doing. Write it down, because later, as you think back on the work, you may be sitting back later in the day, having a cup of coffee, some tea, what have you, fixing dinner, and then something will pop up around that word, maybe a whole picture, a whole scene. It may take you back in time, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what my muse, my inner self was trying to let me look at. And now then you go back in the studio, you may do a whole piece of artwork around that little journey. Nothing is trivial in this collage process. So I want to end by saying something. It's just a funny comment that I got a few years ago. Someone who was following me. And they had come into my Patreon community, and they after a few months being there, they left, and in their exit survey they said, oh my goodness, all you do is just collage little pieces of paper on stuff. Ugh, it's just too, like, she was just like so annoyed. Even her comment was just like, said with this expression of being annoyed. And it was just kind of funny to me. It was sad and funny at the same time, because I thought, oh wow, like, maybe I just didn't do a good job of communicating just the amazing value of collaging, just sticking little pieces of paper on stuff. And at the same time that, in her journey as an artist, she didn't give herself enough grace, maybe just to hang in there and see what may have come up. And so that's always stuck with me. And I don't even remember who it was, but because I didn't have an email, but I would have reached out and just had a conversation with her, because I think sometimes we can miss the beauty in the smallest things. And with that said, I think my strip is just about done for this session. And I've gone on to make more of these, of course, because I've got so much I've had to clean up. But in our time together of sharing and enjoying, I'm looking forward to the feedback on what collage has meant to you. And if you ever thought about it as this sort of healing modality, and maybe in thinking about it now, how does that change your relationship to collage? And what things can you think that you may do in the future, or like share with me things that come up with you for you now that maybe you can see this as, a part of your self-care time, a part of the time that you're giving yourself permission just to enjoy and allow the inner musings of your mind to sort through and organize and, just love on yourself during these really precious times. So yeah, anyway, it's been a lot of fun, of course, hanging out with you all, and we'll be doing more of this. Our book is coming up. Next video should be me showing you all the things you should start collecting so we can get working on our book.
So another amazing session. I just love doing these strips. I think they're so cool. So like we talked about, the idea that they just stay small, you can just sort of tear them off and use them. And I really got rid of a lot. This is probably, maybe, I don't know, a couple yards. And we got a lot of these little pieces. Actually, all of that envelope are gone now. And also, I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on like how you feel that collage brings well-being to you as well. I loved the feedback from last week. You all just really jumped in and started sharing. So much dialogue, and I learned so much more about you all. I guess you're thinking the same thing too. I'm learning a lot more about you too, Robin. So this is going to be a fun exchange, because I like being able to sort of talk about these other things that I deal with every day, just how to stay motivated, how to continue to bring so many ideas forward, how to be a content creator and bring things to you all, and, but also being authentic and being, genuine to myself. And sometimes I've failed at that. Sometimes I've been not as transparent about where I am or how I'm feeling. And 2023, I decided, no holds barred. I'm just going to share so much more, because I feel like those people that I follow and podcasts I listen to, the more they give of themselves and the more they share from a really deep level, the heart level, I feel like the more I get. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's my journey or I 100% agree and all that kind of stuff. It's just so much that comes out of that. And I feel like from last week's discussion, there was quite a bit that we all gained from that. And so I really appreciated the feedback. So this week, please, continue to share. Let me know. I guess the essential thing I want to know is what do you get most from collaging? And when you think about it as well-being or self-care, what does that stimulate in your thinking? And also when you think about the idea of, being able to see the symbolisms as more powerful than words, which we talked about. Yeah, so drop the comments below. And I guess that's everything. If you're new to the channel, of course, always subscribe, hit the bell, hit all. And if you enjoyed this video, thumb it up so that it can be pushed out and we can continue to grow our community. And yeah, until next week, enjoy yourself in your studios. And we're just about ready now to, we're going to look at all the things that we're going to need to begin the book. And then the following week, we're going to go full into beginning to make it. And I think I'm going to break it down into 2 different ways we're going to do the book. So we'll talk more about that next week. So, you know, depending on what skill level you are with bookbinding, you'll be able to have the easier one. And then those of you who follow me on Patreon, and we've been doing a lot of books together, you guys will have the more Western style bound book. And that's a little bit too much to kind of just try to show in these videos. But yeah, but we'll all end up at the same place with this amazing journal. All right, take care. Love you guys. Bye-bye.